Michael moved his hands gently across the surface of the old oak table, sanding it the way he had done for more than 40 years. February sunlight fell through the workshop windows, turning the dust in the air into floating gold. This room had always made sense to him, even when the world outside did not. He heard the door bang open behind him, but he kept working, keeping his rhythm steady. When he finally turned around, he saw his son, Adam, standing in the doorway with his girlfriend, Chloe, right behind him. Adam's voice came sharp and impatient as he said, "Dad, I need $50,000. It's urgent." Michael removed his apron slowly and folded it over the workbench, the way he always did when preparing for a serious discussion. Adam stood stiff, avoiding his father's eyes, wearing an expensive jacket Michael knew his son could not afford. "Investment in what?" Michael asked quietly. Before Adam could answer, Chloe cut in with a raised chin. "Does it matter? It's a good opportunity, and we wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." Michael's voice stayed calm. "I've given you money 5 times already. Over $120,000. You never paid back a single dollar." Adam's face turned red. "You're sitting on millions while I struggle. You call yourself a father." Michael leaned against the table he had been restoring and looked at his son with tired eyes. "Your mother and I built everything we have through hard work," he said. "You're not drowning, Adam. You're spending." Adam exploded with anger. "You think because you sand old furniture you're wise? You're just cheap and selfish." Before Michael could answer, Adam stepped forward with sudden rage. "You never believed in me." His fist came fast, too fast. Michael, now 67, could not move quickly enough. The punch landed across his cheekbone so hard that his vision spun, and he fell backward into the workbench, tools crashing around him. Chloe grabbed Adam's arm instantly. "Adam, come on, we're leaving." Her voice was sharp with fear, not compassion. Adam looked at his own hand in shock, as if he could not believe what he had done. They rushed out of the workshop, the door slamming so hard the windows rattled. Michael stayed on the ground for a long moment, breathing through the pain, tasting blood in his mouth. When he finally pushed himself up, he looked into the workshop mirror and saw the bruise already forming under his eye. It wasn't just the injury that hurt. It was the truth behind it, the realization that his son had crossed a line he could never uncross. That night brought no sleep. Michael lay awake staring at the ceiling while his face throbbed with every heartbeat. In the morning, he stood in front of the bathroom mirror and studied the damage: a swollen lip, a dark bruise spreading beneath his eye, and a cut along his cheek where Adam's ring had hit. He raised his phone and took several pictures from different angles, capturing every detail. He walked to the guest room Adam had been using, only to find it stripped bare, closet empty, drawers open, bed without sheets. Adam had packed everything in the night and left without a word. When Michael tried calling him, the call went straight to a blocked message. Michael sat quietly in the guest room doorway, staring at the empty space that once held his son's belongings. He thought about the boy he raised, the boy he taught to hold a hammer and measure with the right way. Now that boy had become a man who hit his own father and ran. Michael called again, only to hear the same blocked message. The anger inside him was not hot, it was cold, sharp, and focused. He understood clearly that the damage was not just physical, but something deeper that could never be repaired. Around 9 in the morning, there was a knock on the door. When Michael opened it, he found his neighbor, Mr. Brooks, holding a coffee mug and looking uneasy. "I saw what happened yesterday," Mr. Brooks said. "If you need a statement, I'll write it." Michael studied his face and saw genuine concern, not gossip. "I'd appreciate that," he replied. Mr. Brooks nodded and promised to write every detail, time, date, and what he witnessed through the workshop window. It was the first piece of evidence Michael would collect. Later that day, Michael visited urgent care. The young doctor examined his injuries and wrote everything down carefully. She measured the bruises, documented the swelling, and printed an official injury report. "You should file a police report," she advised gently. Michael didn't answer right away. He was thinking of something bigger than police reports. He was thinking long-term. When he left the clinic with the documents in hand, he understood that Adam had built the foundation of his own downfall. All Michael needed now was time. Over the next 3 weeks, Michael gathered every piece of evidence he could. He printed his photos, stored the medical documents, and filed Mr. Brooks' signed statement. Then he began studying inheritance laws, estate disputes, and what rights a father had when an heir became violent. That was when he discovered a North Carolina law that changed everything. If an heir assaulted a parent, that heir could be disinherited entirely. Michael read the law 5 times, making sure he understood every line. The path forward became clear. Michael met with attorney Daniel Grant, a calm man in his early 50s who understood the law like a craftsman understood wood. Michael laid out the pictures, the medical papers, and the witness statement. Attorney Grant nodded slowly. "Your evidence is strong," he said. "You don't even need a police report to disinherit him." Michael leaned back in his chair, absorbing each word. "Then I'll be patient," he replied quietly. The attorney smiled. "Patience," he said, "is exactly how you win this." And Michael knew he would. Michael returned home from the attorney's office with a clearer mind. He opened his safe and created a new folder labeled February Incident. He placed every document inside: photos, witness statement, medical records, attorney notes. Then he locked the safe calmly, knowing he had begun building something stronger than anger, a legal wall his son could never climb. That night, he sat by his wife's side as she worked on her accounting files, both unaware of how soon everything would change. The months passed quietly. Michael continued restoring furniture, and his wife, Laura, expanded her small accounting firm. They visited attorney Grant regularly, reviewing draft after draft of the new will. Each clause was worded carefully to protect their home, the business, and everything they had built. "It must be airtight," Grant always said. Laura read every line with the focus of someone who understood numbers and consequences. Together, they prepared for a future where Adam could no longer harm what they created. By December, the will was finalized. The notary arrived with 2 witnesses who did not know the family. The room felt heavy but certain as each person signed. "Do you both understand this document?" the notary asked. "Yes," Michael and Laura answered. Their signatures dried on the page like closing a door forever. The will went into the safe next to the evidence folder, forming a complete structure, one built with patience and a painful understanding of who their son had become. Years moved quietly. Adam drifted through jobs, towns, and excuses. Michael heard bits of news from neighbors and suppliers, always stories of struggle and instability. He never reached out, and Michael never chased him. In their home, life continued in steady rhythms: work, quiet dinners, shared laughter, and plans for retirement. But beneath every moment was the silent knowledge that one day Adam would return, not for love, not for forgiveness, but for inheritance. And when that day came, they would be ready. Then, without warning, Laura collapsed at her office. Michael rushed to the hospital, heart pounding like a hammer against wood. Doctors spoke quietly in terms he didn't want to hear: stroke, damage, no response. Laura opened her eyes once, just long enough to whisper, "Protect what we built. Don't let him destroy it." Michael held her hand until the machines grew quiet. In a single dawn, he became a widower, carrying her last request like a weight he would honor until the end. The funeral was simple, the way Laura wanted. Friends, clients, and neighbors filled the chapel. Adam did not appear, not a call, not a message, not a flower. After the service, Michael sat alone in the quiet house they had built together, surrounded by the echoes of her footsteps. Grief pressed against him, heavy and cold. But beneath that grief lived purpose. He opened the safe again and placed his hand on the will. He whispered to the quiet room, "I'll protect everything. I promised you." A week later, the doorbell rang. When Michael looked through the glass, he saw Adam and Chloe standing on the porch, dragging 2 large suitcases. They looked tired, desperate, and rehearsed. "Dad," Adam said softly, "I'm so sorry about Mom." Michael opened the door without smiling, without speaking. "Where should we put our things?" Chloe asked boldly. Michael stepped aside and pointed upstairs. "Guest room." They walked in with the confidence of people who believed they still had rights to his life. That evening, the 3 of them sat at the dinner table. Adam tried small talk, asking how Michael was holding up. Chloe leaned forward, bringing up Laura's business. "I have some bookkeeping experience," she said. "Maybe I can help run things until everything is settled." Michael looked at her calmly. "It's already handled." The air tightened. Adam cleared his throat. "Has Mom's will been read yet? When will that happen?" Michael answered simply, "Next Wednesday at 2. Their eyes lit up with greedy relief. Over the next few days, they stopped pretending. Michael found them at the kitchen table with calculators, estimating the value of the business, the house, the accounts. He overheard Chloe whisper, "We deserve at least half. He's old and alone now." Adam replied, "Don't worry. Once the will is read, everything changes." Michael made breakfast quietly while they argued about selling the house or keeping the business for steady income. Every word confirmed what he already knew: they had returned only for money. On the night before the will reading, Michael passed their guest room and heard them celebrating quietly. "By this time next month," Chloe whispered, "we'll be planning our trip somewhere expensive." Adam laughed softly. "We're finally getting what we deserve." Michael walked to his study, opened the safe, and lifted out the will and the evidence folder one last time. He reviewed every paper carefully. Everything was ready. Tomorrow at 2, their future would meet the truth they had ignored for years. Wednesday afternoon arrived heavy with silence. Michael dressed calmly, drank his coffee, and left the house before Adam and Chloe came downstairs. When he reached the attorney's office, the receptionist guided him into the conference room. A long wooden table waited in the center, polished like new. Attorney Grant sat at the head, papers prepared, his expression steady. Michael took his seat, folded his hands, and breathed slowly. Today was the day 3 years of patience would take shape. 5 minutes later, Adam and Chloe entered the room wearing clothes meant to look respectful. Chloe's smile was tight, forced. Adam avoided his father's eyes. They sat across from Michael, whispering to each other. Attorney Grant straightened his glasses and began. "This is the official reading of Laura Evans' will." His voice was calm and formal. Chloe leaned forward eagerly. Adam sat up straighter. They believed this room held their victory. They had no idea it held their ending. Grant read the introduction pages first, legal terms, dates, confirmations of mental clarity. Then he reached the heart of the document. "I leave all my business interests, my home, my accounts, and all personal property to my husband, Michael Evans, absolutely and entirely." The words landed like thunder. Adam jolted to his feet, grabbing the table edge. "Stop. What about me? I'm her son." Chloe snapped, "This must be illegal. Children get a share." Grant raised a hand calmly. "Please sit. There is more." Grant turned a page with slow precision. Then he looked directly at Adam. "Before I continue, I must ask you one question." The room froze. Even the air felt still. Adam frowned, confused. "What question?" Grant's tone turned sharp and clear. "Did you, on February 18th, 3 years ago, strike your father in the face with enough force to cause documented injury?" Adam's face drained white. Chloe stared at him in shock. The truth hung in the room like a blade. Adam opened and closed his mouth, unable to speak. Grant reached into a folder and spread photographs across the table. Michael's bruised face, his swollen lip, the cut on his cheek. Chloe gasped. Next came the urgent care records, signed witness statements, everything dated and undeniable. "Under North Carolina law," Grant continued, "an heir who assaults a parent can be disinherited entirely." Adam shook his head violently. "That was years ago. It was nothing." Grant replied, "The law disagrees." Chloe grabbed the documents with trembling hands. "You lied to me," she whispered. "You told me you pushed him. You never said you hit him." Adam tried reaching for her, but she pulled away sharply. "You said he forgave you," she hissed. "You swore this was guaranteed." Grant resumed reading. "This will contains a clause confirming intentional disinheritance due to documented assault. Michael Evans shall retain all property. Adam Evans shall receive $1 for legal acknowledgement." Chloe stared at Adam as if seeing him for the first time. Adam slammed his fist on the table. "I'll challenge this in court." Grant didn't flinch. "You may try, but the will includes a no-contest clause. If you challenge it, you lose even the $1. You will receive nothing." Adam's breath came hard and uneven. His dreams collapsed in minutes. Chloe stood, disgust written across her face. "You ruined everything," she said, her voice shaking. "You ruined us." She dropped the folder, letting the photos scatter across the floor. Michael finally spoke, his voice steady. You didn't ask how your mother died. You didn't ask if she suffered. You only asked about the will. Adam stared at him, speechless. Michael continued, You've been thinking about money since the day you walked through my door. Not family. Not forgiveness. Chloe whispered, I left my job for this. You told me we were set for life. Adam looked helpless, cornered by truths he could no longer outrun. The silence in the room grew heavy. Grant closed the folder and stood. The reading of the will is complete. He turned to Michael. I'll need you to sign transfer documents. Then he looked at Adam and Chloe. You may leave. Adam rose slowly, like someone carrying invisible weight. Chloe walked ahead of him, refusing to look back. At the doorway, Adam hesitated, as if trying to find words. None came. He lowered his head and followed Chloe out. Their footsteps echoed down the hallway and disappeared. Michael watched through the conference room window as Adam and Chloe hurried to their car. They drove off fast, desperate to escape the truth. Attorney Grant placed the remaining documents on the table. Everything is secure now, he said gently. Michael nodded. He felt no triumph, only closure. The 3 years of planning, documenting, and waiting had done exactly what they were meant to do. He gathered the papers, stood tall, and walked out of the building with a steady heart. The next morning, Michael returned to his workshop. The familiar smell of wood and varnish greeted him like an old friend. He placed the will folder on his bench and exhaled slowly. Justice had been done, not loudly, not violently, but with patience and precision. As he picked up his tools, he realized his hands were steady again. The quiet of the workshop felt different now, lighter, as if the room itself understood a burden had finally lifted. Adam began calling again within a week. At first, he demanded explanations. Then he pleaded. Then he cried. Michael did not answer. His silence was not anger, it was acceptance. A final boundary. After several days of unanswered calls, Adam finally stopped. The house became peaceful again. Michael moved through his days repairing furniture, paying bills, cooking meals, and feeling a strange new calm. Life was moving forward without chaos. But news still traveled quietly. A supplier mentioned that Adam and Chloe were fighting constantly. Another neighbor heard they had separated temporarily. Someone else said Adam had been visiting lawyers in Charlotte. Each story painted the same picture, desperation without direction. Michael listened, nodded, and returned to his work. He felt no desire to interfere. His job as a father had ended long before the will was read. Now he simply watched life move on. Several weeks later, the calls stopped entirely. The house felt still, but not empty. Michael used the quiet to settle things Laura would have wanted organized. He met with her business partners, finalized the sale of the accounting firm, and ensured every employee kept their job. The buyers appreciated the care Laura put into her work. She built something remarkable, they told him. Michael smiled softly. She always did. Her legacy would continue without mismanagement or greed. With the business sold, Michael began working on the scholarship fund he and Laura once dreamed about. It would support young people learning woodworking and traditional crafts, skills that required patience, attention, and heart. He met with another attorney to create the trust. They named it the Laura Evans Craftsmanship Fund. When the documents were signed, Michael felt something ease in his chest. It felt like handing a piece of Laura to the future. One quiet Thursday afternoon, Adam called again. Michael answered this time. Adam's voice was thin, defeated. Dad. I'm leaving town. I lost everything. Chloe left. I have nothing. Michael held the phone without speaking. Adam continued, I'm going to stay with a friend in Tennessee until things settle. Michael finally replied, all right. Adam waited, hoping for more, an invitation, a softening, anything. But Michael offered nothing else. The silence said everything. Their paths had split for good. You planned all of this, Adam whispered bitterly. 3 years. You planned every detail. Michael looked out the workshop window, watching the wind move through the trees. No, he said calmly. You planned at the moment you raised your hand against me. Adam had no answer. The truth needed no defense. After a long pause, he said, "Goodbye, Dad." Michael replied softly, "Goodbye, Adam." It was the last time either of them spoke. When the call ended, Michael put the phone down and sat quietly at his bench. He felt neither joy nor sorrow, only peace. The kind of peace that comes from finishing something difficult and necessary. The workshop hummed with quiet sounds, wood settling, tools resting, sunlight warming the walls. This was the world he and Laura had built together, steady, honest, strong. It had survived storms and betrayal because it was made with care. Michael picked up the chisel he had been using earlier and returned to carving the cherrywood cabinet he had started months ago. The grain ran clean beneath his hands. Each cut was smooth, patient, and deliberate. He worked slowly, the way Laura always said he should. Outside, neighbors walked past, dogs barked, and life continued. Inside the workshop, time seemed to slow, settling into a rhythm that felt right. The world felt balanced again. As the afternoon sunlight spilled across the wood, Michael paused and looked at the photograph on the wall, him and Laura, smiling in front of this same workshop 40 years earlier. He touched the frame gently. "I kept my promise," he whispered. Everything was protected. The house. The business. The legacy. The peace. He placed the photograph back and returned to his work with a steady heart. Justice had taken 3 years, but it had arrived perfectly, leaving him exactly where he belonged, building something that would last.